All right, we rolling? Yeah, let's get into this. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. I'd like to ask you how much the 1% really control your life and how much you just give away control of your life. Because if I can live off $200 to $300 a month as a van lifer laid back, and like, well, how do you do that? You know, we'll go into that in a second. Then how is it you can't do what I can do? You make a choice not to do what I do, and that's your choice. You do as you want to do. But to sit there and say it's the 1% just kind of shows me that you either have no power because you choose to have no power, or you give up your power and then throw your hands in the air and act like, not my fault. People say, well, how do you live so cheaply? Let's just say when I'm van lifing or trucking, because trucking, you know, make anywhere early game, 70K, 80K, and eventually you can make 100K a year working at a company. You just have to get to the right companies, to be honest. But, you know, plumber, electrician, whatever, living as cheaply as possible. I'm glad to see that some of these kids are they're living with their parents longer in the sense that they're working a good job, a good trade, and they're saving up so they could, if they want to get a house, they pay cash for their house, or at least they pay cash for their land. You know, something. They're not paying the mortgages. They're not trying to impress people as much. I'm happy whenever I see a kid go out there and get a good old vehicle, and maybe him and the father or the mother put work into it, and they make a car that's a nice little car. They're not trying to keep up with the Joneses. My cost of living is so ridiculously cheap because, for instance, I pay under $25 a month for insurance. I pay $15 a month for laundry. If I'm already stationary in the wasteland or wherever I'm at, my gas is maybe $20 a month. Probably less. If I can bike ride to something, I will. I kind of want to eventually get one of those e-bikes. I also got a motorcycle someday I'm going to use as well, but that's a whole side topic. Internet's $30 a month, unlimited data. What else is there? Food, I can get food for free a lot of the time, but, you know, let's just say $100 because you learn how to cook, save money. Let's see. Insurance, $20 in gas. Laundry, $15 a month, assuming I just don't do it at home, you know, do it in a creek or whatever. I actually like creek laundry. It comes out softer, but we're not talking about a lot of money here. And occasionally hit up a thrift store and find some, you know, you go to some of these thrift stores and there's actually some decent threads in some of these places, you know. How much does my life really cost there? We're talking $200 a month. Hell, let's just go up to 300. Let's say I was smoking a little weed, you know, about $100 a year in weed. I don't smoke all the time when I smoke. And I'd say probably, let's just go $200 of sea ice vodka, about $11 to $12 a half gallon. So we're talking $300 a year. Not a year, a month. So let's just go $300. We're not even up to $5,000 a year. So let's just round it up to 5,000 and say I go crazy. I buy a bunch of extra. Maybe there's a new Switch or gaming system. And then I buy a handful of games. I buy them used, of course. Or unless they go on the greatest hits kind of sale thing, you get them for $20 or $30, you know. I'm really curious if my cost of living is well under $5,000 as a van lifer. And, you know, let's be real. Let's just keep it at 5,000 because maybe you need a tire. Maybe you need to go junkyard search out at some tires. Find a deal on some tires. Maybe you get the brakes done. Like the other day, I had a leak on one of my calipers. It turned out it wasn't the caliper. It was the fittings that went into the caliper. Something about the bushings or some shit. It was $100. It's a quick fix. I'm thankful. See the bright side of a bad thing. But yeah, I can live that cheap. So now imagine what happens when you're making $80,000 to $100,000. You can be the investor class as a teenager. That's what I'm getting at with this. And I get it. You've been domesticated to the point of failure. You are livestock. Most of you are livestock. You're human cows or sheeple, whatever you want to call it. And you follow what the herd tells you to do. Your religious beliefs, your political beliefs, a lot of your causes, your thoughts. These are all things the media makes, sells, and whatnot. I find it funny. I really do. I find it funny. I find it entertaining. The reason for that is fairly simple. You have all these people running around saying how they're individuals. My life, my this. But they all do the same shit. You know, they go out and buy cars. I see these guys in this, like the Rocky Mountain town where I outright own a house. It's funny, I did a remodel on it. Me and my brother-in-law did that. Finished it last year. And I walked in there because I hadn't been in there in a few months. And you could smell the new house smell. The paint, new paint and all that. And if I could do it all over again, I never would have bought the house. But if I could just go back 4 years, I just would have sold the place when the prices were really high. Never bothered doing the remodel and kept on trucking. Job hop to a better company, higher pay, better range. And I'd be probably $500,000 to $600,000 up. All that invested, we're talking at least $50,000 a year, passively earning. Now, am I some incredible, genius? No, I'm an average person who just understands the concept, of actually living cheap so you can invest. But you look at people's general decisions, cars, clothes, mortgages, and houses in places that are just fucking overpriced. They're just overpriced, man. $500,000 for a place to sleep? Are you kidding me? At 6% interest or whatever it's going for these days on a 30-year mortgage, the first year you give up $30,000. Poof, gone to the banks. Then credit cards with 27% interest. I see that shit. 27%. That should be criminal, by the way. That should be against the law, in my opinion. To put people, especially young, dumb people. I think in order for you to get credit in this world, you should have to show that you should have to have an IQ test. But they don't. But it's not like people don't know that things are going to cost. I don't know. Maybe it's just what they sell you is, okay, but your payment will be this low. Yeah, but you'll be making it for 30 years. Your car payment will be this low. And it's not low anymore. What is it? Something like $700 for a really nice new vehicle. Well, imagine what do those $100,000 pickups cost these days? $80,000 to $100,000. What does an Escalade cost per month? It ain't cheap. And it's still just a people mover. And what I'm getting into that is that if your entire life is basically just going to home, going to work, so you can make payments, even though you could have done the hero's journey, you could have lived very efficiently, as I said at the very beginning of this. You know how I can live off less than $5,000 a year comfortably. I'm happy. And if I'm happy, that's all that fucking matters, to be honest. I point these things out. I show you the flaw. I show you the hole in the fucking dam. And what I mostly run into with people is this: nope. That's not the way it is. I get it. If you want to be a retard and go and put yourself into horrible levels of credit debt, commuting back and forth, giving up, an hour or 2 hours a day of your work, because, if you don't get paid for that time, you're basically just, let me give this a simple equation. If you make $25 an hour and you have to give up equivocally just to make sure you're on time, 2 hours of your life a day, 5 days a week, that's $250 a week. Your rent went up or your mortgage went up. You're not saving money by being all the way the fuck out in the middle of nowhere. If you have to drive 30, 40 miles to work through traffic, you're not saving anything. Maybe you're in a better town, better place to raise your kids, but you're not saving anything. And then you got to rebuy cars semi-regularly. You best be making some real ass money for that. That's why I'm a big proponent of van life. if you could put up a tent in someone's backyard, if you could put up one of those tough sheds, live as cheap as goddamn possible. That rent, that utilities, all that crap. Think about really what it is. You need a place to use the bathroom. You need a place to use a shower. This is why I promoted the idea in the cities. We need to take some old buildings or build new buildings and have like little storage unit size rooms where people, like you have a men's house and a women's house. And maybe you have some weird transfery dragon house or whatever, you know, for when you can't figure out what the fuck you are, or you're trying to convince other people that you are something, you go over in that house, the middle house. But a place where people have affordable rent. It's not glamorous, it's not beautiful, but it's cheap. And as long as you can show that you're making profit in your work, you're making money, you're getting somewhere, you're allowed to live there and save up. That way, one day you can go to some part of your country and pay cash. You ain't pay no mortgage. You're young and you outright own. I mean, if I can work trucking 1 year and go to the Midwest, beautiful little towns all over America, Kansas, Texas, little towns in Tennessee, all over the Midwest, even the South, you can find affordable housing. If I can do that, work 1 year and pay cash for a house, what does that say about the system that taught you to work for 30 years for a place in the burbs? What does that say if I got a van for $700 back in 09? Bought this van back in 09, and because I'm a trucker, I barely put any miles on it. I bought it with 98,000 miles on it, and now it has, 34, maybe 36,000 miles more on it in 15 years, in 15 fucking years. And most of those miles were fun miles. And you've went through how many brand new cars in that 15 years? You went through at least probably 3 to 4 of them. How many hundreds of thousands of dollars did you give up? Really, when you think about it, that car costs this plus its interest payments. If you had taken that money and just invested it into something simple like the S&P, bought a little gold and silver, maybe do a little stock market gambling, even just buy some raw land, even if there's nothing on it. You just bought some raw land back when the prices, like right now, it's still a buyer's market. You got some money, you want to buy some cheap land, you might be able to find yourself something out there. When these interest rates go down, market's going to go back up. But the point of it is, if you had just avoided buying all those cars, you'd probably have a retirement when you were young. So that's why when I say minimalism is the key to everything else, I'm not kidding. But I get it. If you don't want to do that, and you get these dummies out there. They'll be like, you're poor. You're this, you're that. Shit, man. These dumb motherfuckers be talking about my economic status. They're a renter. They're Section 8. Or there's some fool paying a mortgage for 30 years. I paid off my first house when I was 31. Still got that place up north. I've had it for almost 20 years. Come December, 20 years. 20 years I've had that house. And I've barely lived in it because I don't really need to. I did a remodel on it. Still smells brand new when I walk into the place. You know, I got 2 other pieces of land. I paid cash for both of them. I still got more than enough money in the bank. I could live at least 10, maybe 15 years as is, even with the problem, that ball and chain of a house up north, paying those basics. Because you got to pay the water, you got to pay the taxes, you got to pay the insurance. It's part of the reason I need to find a property manager to turn it into a rental. But I could live 10, 15 years and not work a fucking day. And I've been off. I haven't worked in 3 years. Yeah. That's why I tell you about minimalism. But I get it. It's kind of like the legend of Habakkuk. You got all the people doing the wrong way. How the hell do you convince a bunch of fools not to walk into the slaughter? I don't know. Lord, give me strength on that motherfucker. But I'm just saying. Minimalism is the skeleton key for so many doors, so many avenues of your life. If you're willing to do it, you can have success. If you're not, well, that's your life. That's your choice. Take it easy.